Okay, now galaxies. There's also something interesting going on with galaxies. This is the Markarian Chain in the Virgo cluster. We have the big picture just in the depths of space, kind of over there, that shows just this section. There are spiral galaxies, like this one over here, and there's a spiral galaxy there and there. And there's also elliptical galaxies. They're big and fuzzy. Ellipticals are some of the smallest. They're also some of the largest. But when you go and do a census, you go count up how many of each kind of galaxy there are, things get a little strange. We can take a look at the next slide here. This is local, so we go around our own Milky Way and we measure the types of galaxies there are. And it turns out ellipticals, they're there, but they're not incredibly common. You have more spirals, and there are just a couple of these peculiar galaxies, things that don't have the right shape. But if we look in the far distance, we go further away, we're looking back in time, there's a lot more of these peculiar galaxies. There's fewer spirals and about the same number of ellipticals. So you think, well, okay, are these peculiars becoming spiral galaxies? Perhaps. We know that mergers are important. We can take a look at the next slide here, and we actually see galaxies that are merging. These are colliding galaxies. They'll eventually become one. But simulations told us that they should, we have one here we can look at, that they should form an elliptical galaxy. If you take two spirals and smash them together, or two peculiars and smash them together, you should end up with something that looks more like an elliptical galaxy, not something that looks like a spiral. Well, then what's wrong with our models? Something's wrong, because when we actually look nearby, we have tons and tons of spiral galaxies. There's lots of them there. So something about these models they were doing isn't answering the question completely. So if we go forward, you can see in this model, it's eventually going to form a big mess of stars in the middle. The blue is the gas. The gas gets used up. It turns into stars. And you have something that doesn't have a lot of gas left over, and it's used up all its stars, and it does kind of resemble an elliptical galaxy in a way. We can even take images of separate galaxies and map together sort of a history of something that looks a lot like this. And it's very pretty. I think we stopped it there. One forward. So here, these are actually different galaxies, and we didn't photograph them over time. It takes way too long, billions and billions of years for this to go by. But in number one, pair of galaxies. Number two, a different pair. But this is what we think should happen as this merger takes place, and you end up with something messy that looks a lot like an elliptical galaxy. Well, it turns out that ALMA, the Atacama Large Millimeter Array, ALMA, down in Chile, it's high up in the mountains, did some measurements of these mixed up galaxies, and it turns out the gas in them, the stuff that will allow you to make a spiral galaxy, is rotating. It's spinning fast enough to preserve the spiral galaxy. So you can take two things, smash them together, and you don't always end up with an elliptical. So what are you looking at here? A bunch of blobs, right? Well, they're radio maps, or millimeter wavelength maps. It's actually shorter wavelengths than just radio, kind of like what's used in your microwave. You have contours here, and you have blue and red. It's been coded. You've heard about blue shift and red shift. Something that's blue shifted is moving away from you. Red shifted is moving away from you. Blue shifted is moving towards you. So these things are rotating. This left-hand side is coming towards you. The right-hand side of the top left one is moving away, toward, away, all the way down the line. So the gas is spinning. Well, if something is spinning, it can hold itself up. It's kind of like, the pizza maker spinning the dough, and the dough wants to go outwards. Well, these will probably form spiral galaxies after this collision. So reality of what we see nearby is being upheld what we're measuring a little bit further away as we're watching these things collide. So, the researchers, the theorists that do those models have their work cut out for them to figure out what they're doing wrong in their models to make too many ellipticals.